Hi, did you know that church isn't just for good people or for those who feel they are not worthy to attend church? Church is for everyone. This week I'm going to share a message that's standalone. It's not part of a series. To answer this question, is church only for good people? Now, the reason I want to answer this question is because most folks who do not attend church have probably asked themselves this question. So many people head out on Sunday mornings, they go to the shopping mall, they go to play golf, they go and have brunch and drive past probably 2, 3 or even 4 churches. The doors are open, people are parking, people are going in, but so many people, in fact 90% of New Zealanders on any given Sunday would say, that's not for me. In fact, I'm not even worthy to go into that place. It's not the place that I should be at. Related questions would be something like this. Well, my life is falling apart. I'm not a good person. I feel yuck. I feel unworthy, so that's not the place for me. Or I'm a bad person. I've done a lot of bad stuff and I'm certainly not, God is not interested in me. I'm not worthy. Or I've shown no interest in God whatsoever for my entire life. Why would I go to church now? And if I did, why would God be interested in me? So I want to give 2 responses to this fundamental question. Is church only for good people? Number 1, the church as God intended it is for all people, irrespective of your background, your culture, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your age. Everyone is welcome. Contrary to the popular perception, everyone is in fact welcome at any local church anywhere in New Zealand, of which there are actually around about 2,500 local churches. No one should be excluded, and actually no one should feel excluded. In fact, a famous bishop once said at the turn of the century, the church is the only society that exists for the benefit of those who are not its members. Let me say it again. The church is the only society on earth that exists for the benefit of those who are not yet its members. Think about that. Every club you go to or that you've been part of is there to serve the membership. You pay a sub and the club is set up to serve you as a member. The church is different. The church is actually there fundamentally to serve those who are not yet part of it, because the church, as the Bible has intended it, is for all peoples that God has created on planet Earth, 7 billion people. The church is in actual fact, biblically understood, to continue the work that Jesus began 2,000 years ago. Now, we've talked about this before. Jesus was physically alive 2,000 years ago, and for 3.5 years, his final 3.5 years, he did a lot of very good stuff, and he helped a heck of a lot of people. The church today is actually supposed to carry on the work that he began. So we read a lot about what he did in the 4 Gospels. And as I say, that's what we are intended to do as our churches. Sadly, that isn't always the case. So let's detail this a little bit. What did Jesus then do? How can we perhaps get a handle on this? Well, put very simply, he spent most of his time, yes, most of his time with people who were far from good. In fact, people who were far from any kind of relationship with him. People you would least expect. In fact, if Jesus were here today, we would be shocked as to where he would be and who he would hang out with. People like tax collectors, prostitutes, demonized people, adulterers, lepers, and beggars. In fact, Jesus clearly said that he came to seek and to save. This is his mission statement. That's really interesting. Jesus came to seek and to save all those who were spiritually lost, those who are far away from any kind of relationship with Him. So here are two verses that just sum this up. The first one from Luke chapter 19 and verse 10, where Jesus said, "For the Son of Man," these are Jesus' own words, referring to himself as the Son of Man, and let's just put that little phrase aside for a moment, but "For the Son of Man came to seek and to save those who are lost." That word lost in the New Testament is actually loaded. But essentially it means spiritually lost. And no connection to God, no understanding of any kind of spiritual reality. The second verse is really interesting. So Jesus he's just finished a miracle. He's just healed somebody miraculously. Now he's sitting down at a dinner with a whole bunch of sinners. Now, we are not told precisely who the sinners were. We don't know of one category of sinner at this dinner. They were tax collectors. And there's a bit of a story as to why tax collectors were deemed to be sinners in those days. They were fraudsters, actually, most of them, which is different to, of course, today. But Jesus was sitting with these people. And here we get once again this fascinating moment where the religious leaders, known as the Pharisees and the scribes and the sort of temple elders, were discussing with themselves and amongst themselves, how is it that he can sit with these people? Doesn't he get it? Doesn't he understand who these people are, what their backgrounds are? And Jesus overhears this. He discerns their conversation, and he responds by saying this: healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. So he's referring to them. They deem themselves to be healthy. They deem themselves to be kind of like the religious elite. They've got their life together. They're all good and kosher and all is well. And he says, you people, it's a real dig actually in their ribs. You people don't need a doctor. And he's the doctor, of course. He's the great physician. Sick people do. I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, referring to them again, but to those who know they are sinners. Wow, that just captures the essence of what Jesus was about, and therefore what the church today in modern day New Zealand, Australia, whatever part of the world you're living in, should be about. The thing I really love about this simple statement is that Jesus turned religion on its head. It's incredible. The dominant religion in Jesus' day was Judaism. That's where the Pharisees came from. That's where the scribes came from. The Pharisees were the religious leaders, and their focus was exclusively on religious life. That's all they cared about, actually. All righteous people, religious people. So it was about religious life and about religious people. Not much else mattered to them. So if you were a nice and God-fearing person, it was pretty simple. If you measured up, you were welcome in the temple. You could come to worship, as we would call it today. But woe betide if you were not a religious person, if you were not a righteous person, if you were not a person that had a goal to live a life according to the law, as it was known in those days. Woe betide. You were excluded. You were out. You were an outcast. And you were not welcome. And in this simple statement here, and in the earlier verse, Jesus turns this on its head. And he says, actually, you fellas have got it all wrong. Completely wrong. You completely misunderstand my purpose for existence. The reason why I'm here. I'm here for sinners. I'm here for people who are far away from me. I am here for people who do not feel worthy to be in my presence. That's who I've come for. So here's my point. Churches are not just for good people. I understand that may be the perception that has arisen. It's kind of like what I would describe as an urban myth. I understand how that perception has arisen because Christian people haven't always lived this message out particularly well. We've kind of maybe postured as being a bit like the religious people of Jesus' day. Our lives are all together. We kind of got our act together. It ain't true. I've been around Christian people a long time. I know my own life pretty well. We don't have it all together. We're not actually that good. Certainly not in the context of God's goodness and God's holiness. And we all need to be able to go to church, and indeed we're all welcome. So really, therefore, if Jesus was hanging out with sinners for most of his adult life, most of his ministry life, that's who the church should be hanging out with today. The truth is actually that the church is not just for good people. It is for the non-religious, the unconvinced, the addict, the criminal, the wife abuser, the homosexual person, the fraudster, the skeptic, the curious, the weak, the sick, and the poor. So no, the church isn't just for good people. I'd like to close this talk out with another question, which is what actually is good? And when we use the word good in everyday language and we know what we're talking about, we've got a sense of what good is. There's lots of good things happening in the world, and amongst all the bad things, there's lots of good people doing good things, etc. But what does good mean from a Christian perspective, or how would God view good? There is a particular meaning for good from the Bible, and I want to illustrate that by using this tape measure here. So this is a measurement here that we're going to come up with, a measurement of goodness. Okay, so here we go. We've got the tape measure. So here's our measure of goodness. Okay, so we're going to put God at the very top, right here at this 1.5 meter mark. God is supremely good. Let's all agree with that he's perfect, that there is no sin in God, and in fact we Christians use a word for that which we call holy. He's holy, he's perfect, and no human being is. We're all kind of got flaws, and we got problems, and we make mistakes, and we're not always as good as we want to be. So if we were to therefore measure where we would place ourselves on this measure of goodness, where might that be in relation to God being perfect? So here he is, God is perfect. Where would you put yourself? Well, I might put myself down here, to be honest. I know my heart. I've lived with myself for a long time. I kind of know what's inside of me. And it isn't always that flash. I'm a Christian, but it ain't always that flash. I've got a few Christian friends in the room here right now. I don't know. One of them might put himself right down here. I mean, he's a really bad boy. Well, I'm kind of tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but Christians were going to put themselves somewhere around here. Let's think about a couple of well-known Christians, for example. Billy Graham died just a month ago. Well-known to the world, really, has done so much good, has preached to more people than anybody else in known history. Well, he might place himself, if Billy were in the room, he might say, well, I think I might be around here. Or even a little lower. Mother Teresa of India, the famous Mother Teresa, did so much good. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, seriously, who's going to measure up to Mother Teresa? And she would say, well, if God is there, I'm probably down here. She always struggled with her own kind of heart and the thoughts of her mind and such. So the truth of the matter is, and here's the point, from God's perspective, in relation to his essential nature and his character, no one is good. No one. Not even the most righteous, the most religious, the most good people. No one measures up to God's goodness. And the only reason why actually we can have a relationship with God is because of the gospel message, which we've talked about in earlier programs, because of Jesus. He's made that possible. When we have a relationship with Jesus, he, in a most remarkable spiritual way, somehow God's goodness gets placed on us and God sees us differently and we can have a relationship with him. So my point being that actually, when all is said and done, No one is good. Now, it's true that some Christians hopefully are worked through some of the problems of this life, but then there are other people that are still wrestling with some issues. At the end of the day, no one is that good. Therefore, everyone is welcome to church. Everyone is welcome to pursue a relationship with God. Let's pray together. Lord, thank you so much that you came for all people, and that when you set the church in motion as we know it today, you made this church such that we could all continue to know you and to experience your loving grace and your kindness toward us. Thank you, Lord, that we are accepted by you, that you care for us, and that no matter what our background, no matter what we think of ourselves, we are welcome at church. We are welcome to investigate and to pursue a relationship with you, and we are so grateful for that, Lord. And I pray for everyone who's been listening to this program today, this week, that you would encourage them to pursue a relationship with you, or to rededicate their lives in a relationship with you, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. The song that we would like to recommend for you to have a look at today is a song called Clean by Natalie Grant. She's an award-winning gospel singer from America. And here are a couple of the lines that you might like to really focus on as you listen. There's nothing too dirty that you can't make worthy. And of course, when she says you, she's referring to God. So that God or Jesus can't make worthy. There's nothing too dirty that you can't make worthy. You wash me in mercy. Captures so well what we've been talking about. I hope you enjoy the song. Thank you so much for listening this week, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week. God bless.